Welcome to Talk+Water, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the world of water with those making waves. My name is Todd Votteler, and I'm your host for Talk+Water. I'm also the editor-in-chief of Texas+Water and the Texas+Water Journal. You can sign up for Texas+Water by visiting texas+water.org, and you can sign up for the Texas+Water Journal at texaswaterjournal.org. Both publications are free. My guests today are Scott Bryan, president of Imagine H2O, and Dr. Greg Newbloom, the founder and CEO of Membrion. Scott, Greg, welcome.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Excited.
So a little bit about Scott. Scott is responsible for leading Imagine H2O and its mission. Since 2010, Imagine H2O has supported over 150 startups and has expanded its programming internationally. Scott serves on the National Alliance for Water Innovation and Commercialization Council and is an advisor to the Environmental Policy Innovation Center. Dr. Greg Newbloom is the founder and CEO of Membrion, a clean tech startup focused on recycling wastewater from harsh industrial processes. Membrion makes ceramic desalination membranes out of the same material as the silica gel desiccant packets found in the bottom of beef jerky packages. I have a lot of beef jerky packages scattered around.
I'll take them. I'll take them.
Yeah, I'm going to put them in an envelope and send them to you. So thank you guys for being part of Talk+Water. And let's kind of start out with your backgrounds in water. Scott, how did you first become involved with water?
Sure, probably goes to an early age. I had the fortune of growing up in Montana. My family was very involved in the conservation movement and the beginnings of the travel economy in Montana, as well as family members in agriculture. So for me, water, it's hard to not think about water when you're growing up in that. In college, I studied at Colorado College and was really fascinated with markets and sustainability. Actually studied water rights trading in the San Luis Valley, which I think piqued my interest in how do you solve water challenges with market-based thinking and solutions. I then went into finance, worked a lot on clean tech investment strategies. But I was always surprised what was happening in sectors like renewables or electronic vehicles. I was surprised to see all the innovation that was going in, ecosystems going into spaces like that. But that was not being done in water. So that piqued my interest and brought me to Imagine H2O and this idea of how do we leverage the innovation economy to solve our most pressing water challenges.
Well, I'm in Whitefish, Montana today, so big thumbs up for you shouting out for Montana for sure. And I'm sitting here looking at a gorgeous lake. So, Greg, same question for you. What first got you interested in water?
Yeah, I kind of am a recent transplant to the water industry, if you will. So, obviously, water is a big part of all of our lives. But as we created this new material, and we're looking for kind of where's a good home, where's something that really needs the innovation that we created and came across, connecting with people who were adjacent to the water space and really helping us understand that, we're in the water industry. There's a very kind of complex dynamic that's happening, especially around climate-driven water scarcity and things like that, and the opportunities that are emerging and innovation really not pacing with demand, and that kind of dovetailed with what our material can accomplish is something that really drew me into the space. And since then it's just been a phenomenal experience. I think that, being fairly new to the water industry, it's just such an incredible community of people, very welcoming and supportive and embracive of innovative new technologies. And so, it's been great so far.
Well, there's always room for more. People have got great ideas for water. So I look forward to talk to you a little bit more about your technology in a minute. So Scott, back to you. So tell us, what is Imagine H2O? Because I'm sure that there are some folks listening who are not familiar with technology accelerators.
Sure. Yeah, we're a water innovation organization that envisions and builds solutions with the world's best water entrepreneurs, folks like Greg. An accelerator program is really at the core of this. We actually have 3 programs. We have an accelerator that we've run since 2009. In 2018, we added something called the Urban Water Challenge, which provides awards upwards of $100,000 to do pilots in major cities. And we also launched Imagine H2O Asia, which is really our regional hub in that part of the world, where we're supporting local entrepreneurs, as well as creating a bridge for entrepreneurs from outside the region who want to deploy there. So that's in a nutshell who we are. We're a nonprofit organization. We don't take equity in our companies. That allows us to really be a neutral convener in this space. We're backed by private philanthropies, corporations in the water sector, and work with the likes of the World Bank and Asia Development Bank as well.
So what was the motivation originally to create Imagine H2O?
Yeah, I think back to what I was saying, 2008, 2009, there was a lot of excitement in the clean energy space and clean tech economy. But it was surprising to see how little innovation was happening in the water sector. We were in Silicon Valley, and you looked around at other, you looked at social media or software. You knew which cafe to go into where you would find the first member of your team. You knew the restaurant where you'd run into an investor. You knew which conferences to go to. In water, that was very difficult to navigate. So we wanted to kind of create that virtual coffee shop, if you will, where a founder like Greg could walk in and access the customers, investors, and resources they need to build a business faster. When you're an entrepreneur, it's a race against time. So a resource like us can help accelerate that pace. And our kind of theory of change is that the more successful businesses you have in this space, the more solutions there are that are supported by the market.
Well, I've seen your list of sponsors, and you got a great group of sponsors for sure. So I'm part of an accelerator in Austin, but it doesn't focus on water in any way. And I've so that's intrigued me about what you're doing, because for someone like me, it's kind of a random thing whether there's a startup that comes in that has some water technology, because just about any kind of technology startup comes in off and on, and so the focus on water is something that I really thought was interesting. And do you see accelerators for just focus on like energy too, or is it just you kind of first kind of one of the few to do it this way?
Yeah, when we were starting, we knew we were going to be one of the early organizations that had a single focus on a single space. That's more common now. And yes, there's an accelerator for any sector, from fintech to energy. But even in the clean energy space or clean tech space, there's some great organizations that were starting around the same time that focused on EVs, solar, wind, storage, and the like, and sometimes included water. We really saw the water sector as being almost a more difficult space. It still is less than 1% of all climate tech venture investing. So entrepreneurs need an extra lift here, and that's why we focused on one sector. Our advisors, judges, everyone comes from this space. And I think that's a refreshing opportunity for entrepreneurs that come in the door for us, as they see, oh, wow, this is a who's who list in the sector, and I can really get some insight and access quickly.
So I've noticed that you said that you don't take an equity stake, and I know that some accelerators do that. And so I'm wondering, does that affect either way, you're like any kind of an ongoing relationship? In other words, do the companies that you help, do continue to hear from them? Do you to maybe interact with them over time as they're maturing?
Yeah, once they're in the family, they're here to stay.
Okay.
We actually just hired a new alumni manager who that will be her sole purpose is to work with those entrepreneurs. Now with 3 programs, we have some entrepreneurs that have gone through all 3, and that's been neat to see. So there's really a continuum of offerings here. And then once they're in our alumni network, it's amazing how many people want to give back their time or expertise or even in funding, again, being a nonprofit. So we just, a guy named Rob Barnett from Drop Counter, recently his company was acquired and he's become our first entrepreneur in residence. We have a number of our judges and advisors all come from that alumni network. So this is really, it's an accelerator, but more than that, it's an ecosystem. That's really what we've set out to build and continue to engage that community.
So what would the process be for a startup that's gone through the application process and has been selected? What are the kind of steps that they go through?
Yeah, so our accelerator programming done both through our accelerator and Imagine H2O Asia. It's roughly a 10-month program. There is a curriculum throughout that 10-month. We really focus on visibility toward the end. So we take each cohort to shows like WEFTech. We're at Singapore International Water Week. We go to Stockholm. So there's a visibility component. But before all that, it's really about mentorship, capacity building. We help them with their pitches. We assign mentors that can help with business plan and finances, as well as technical experts if that's what they want. And then it's exposure or introductions to a network of investors and customers in the space.
Well, just a note, Greg is nodding his head yes with a lot of those. So, and we're gonna come back to you in a minute, Greg. But before we do, Scott, can you tell us about some of your other success stories before we talk to Greg?
Yeah, I think the success story here is the full portfolio, if you will, of alumni. Collectively, they've raised over $850 million in financing in the water sector, and about 40% of that has been done since 2019. So this is really a place where companies that are looking for external funding do come to, and likewise investors are certainly looking at who's coming through the program. We've had some notable exits to the likes of Xylem, DuPont, and Innovize. But I think we're also really, as an impact organization, we're really looking at that collective impact. This year in our alumni survey, we realized that our alumni have collectively brought their solutions to over 1 billion people. So there's really kind of a human component to this as well. So that's largely the success story, but I think we've certainly done well in the digital transformation space with alumni like Water Smart Software and Valor Water Analytics and others. We do a lot in the wastewater space as well. So it's an exciting group, but very, very diversified. And again, that comes from really looking for the best solutions and entrepreneurs out there.
So before we go to Greg, I'm just curious, everybody having gone through the pandemic, were you able to continue to work with the folks in the accelerator? I guess, everybody was doing everything remotely, but were you still able to work with them? And did you have a lot of folks who were working on technologies during that time?
Yeah, we were fortunate from the get-go. We knew we weren't going to have a brick and mortar business model. We knew that forcing entrepreneurs to come spend 6 months in San Francisco, that works in other sectors, but not in water. You really need your entrepreneurs out in the markets where they are, not hiding out in Palo Alto or Cambridge. So that's always been the model. So we were able to really double down on that virtual capability throughout the pandemic. Obviously it was a challenge for everyone, but I think the pandemic certainly underscored the connection between our work and water, and public health, infrastructure, climate, and all these other issues. I think all of a sudden it's like, okay, water really is having a moment, I think, for that reason. And then other parts of our programs. It was amazing how many countries in Southeast Asia, that did stay open, that did have relatively low rates, and it was, really refreshing for us to come in and see what our colleagues in Southeast Asia were doing in Vietnam, for example, during the pandemic. So, we learned a lot, certainly, but I think by and large we were able to continue to scale and have an impact.
So, Greg, let's talk about Membrion and your technology. Tell us about your technology and, how did you develop it?
Yeah, we were originally, kind of on the theme of a transplant to water. We were originally trying to develop a membrane that could be used in batteries, and trying to develop something that could withstand these like really harsh environments that exist within batteries, while still being able to kind of move these molecules across them. And stumbled across this idea of being able to use silica gel, which, as you mentioned, is that desiccant in the bottom of a beef jerky package. And turns out that has really tiny holes in it. And we thought basically, well, why, if you could make this into a sheet, why couldn't you use it as a filter? And it turns out that leads to some really valuable properties. And that's really been the impetus of the company, spun from just this idea of, well, what if we just repurpose something that, we all take for granted and throw away every day, which, maybe has some themes to water as well. But really being able to find a good home for it, and water ended up being the space to do that. So formed Membrion. We're 6-year-old spin out from the University of Washington, 23 full-time people, and just starting to see first commercial deployments of the technology this year, which is really exciting.
So a little bit about that. I think your technology handles difficult water quality issues, right? I mean, among other things, like produced water, because produced water's got 3 to 6 times the amount of dissolved solids that you find in the ocean. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll take kind of the nastiest of the nasty. We like to say, like, the types of water that, if you were to put your hand in, it would burn your hand because of the chemicals that are in there, things that are, waters that are nearly boiling, things that would, leave a sticky film behind when it comes across it. Those are the types of streams that work really well, just because these ceramic materials are really robust and resistant and durable. And so, we can treat a lot of waste streams that, a lot of our customers now are currently trucking their water off site, or they're boiling it, or, they're using these really antiquated, expensive, definitely not sustainable methods of dealing with their wastewater. And we're really helping them to be able to, reuse that water, recycle it, and do it at a much more cost-effective way, in addition to the sustainability benefits that they see.
So they can use your membranes to clean up the waste stream and repurpose that water. I guess it's industrial facility for cooling or something. It'd be fine for something like that.
Exactly. Okay. We take it to a lot of different reuse applications. It can be reused cooling towers, can get blended into processed water streams in front of an RO. Basically what we do is we're able to remove the salt, and that's what's really different. There's a lot of ceramic membranes that have been around for a long time. They're fantastic, but they just remove larger base contaminants. And so really what's unique about us is those teeny tiny pores that are, literally 1/10,000th the thickness of a human hair, that will allow us to filter out these salts. So much more similar to a reverse osmosis type technology. And so we're able to do that under these extreme environments.
So it sounds like one application might be produced water from hydraulic fracturing. I know that, I'm from Texas, and there's a lot of that goes out in the Permian in West Texas, and not so much, not a great amount of fresh water available. And, folks are worried now about, disposal of that produced water producing earthquakes, like, having in Oklahoma. And so I can imagine, someone might be interested in cleaning up that water and just reusing it for the same purpose again.
Exactly. Yeah, because often, disposal and scarcity go hand in hand, right? It gets complicated to be able, like, you don't have access to enough water, and then you have to go to great lengths to deal with the nasty wastewater that you generate. And you're absolutely right. It exists in produced water, but it's surprisingly common. The wastewaters that are generated at food and beverage facilities, semiconductor facilities, any real manufacturing facility, almost all of them generate some of these really complex, extreme wastewaters. We say, they're extreme in their harshness, but they're also extremely common. And so it's something that's a good problem to be able to solve.
So I know you're an engineer. My background is actually as a scientist. And, I know that we're often not trained to do other things. And business might be one of those. And so I'm curious, when you were thinking, hey, I would like to bring this technology to the marketplace. Did you have much of a business background, or did that present to you kind of a, wow, I wish I knew more about business, and maybe I can find somebody who can help me with that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I started my first company when I was 10 years old. I sold snacks at my brother's baseball games, made a good amount of money for a little kid, and did that for quite a few years. And so, I've always been interested in, meeting a market need and finding that, but also, love math, love science, love the kind of creative, inventive process around that. And so, did my degree in engineering, but always have had kind of this inkling to be able to combine that with the business side of things. That said, I have no formal training, so it's not something that comes there's a little bit that comes naturally, but no experience. Let's put it that way. So I think a big part of my entrepreneurial journey has been linking up with people that are more experienced than me, especially on the business side, on the how to create and grow businesses, how to manage businesses effectively at different stages, and then the water industry in particular is very unique and complex, which as an engineer, I love the complexity of it. But running a business in it, I think that requires a lot of unique strategies. And that's really kind of where, a program like Imagine H2O comes in and helps connect a lot of those dots.
Well, I compliment you. I started my lawn empire, mowing lawns, at 11.
Sure. Yeah.
And I wasn't very good at it, but everybody loved my parents on the block. And so they just kind of had me doing it, even though I really kind of butchered some of their lawns. It was really nice. So tell me, Greg, how Imagine H2O is, helped you in your efforts to bring Membrion's technology to the marketplace. How have you benefited from being part of that program?
Yeah, I mean, the benefits are probably too great to even list off. We could take the next hour to talk through all the different things that we benefited from. But I think that probably first and foremost, I think there's just, the knowledge of what it takes to build a business in the water sector is non-obvious if you're outside of it. There's a lot of things that go into, getting pilots run, sales cycles, how to accelerate that. Because as Scott mentioned, right, time is the currency of the day for us as entrepreneurs. And so how do you navigate all this complexity with finesse and be able to do that really efficiently? I think there's a lot that we adapted in going through the program related to our business model, the markets we focused on, how we looked at that, how we structured our pricing. There's the shift from how to build effective partnerships in the space, and all of those things really came out of the network that they've built. Scott talked about just this massive network of individuals, and I think that from a value standpoint, really took advantage of being able to connect with those folks, people who were so intimately knowledgeable about the things we were trying to do that it was really second nature. We could describe a problem and it takes 15 seconds to get them up to speed. They've seen that, they know how, and they can give very tailored advice. And I think that that's really allowed us to move very quickly in the process. And I think, we've, as we've continued to grow and expand, over the kind of last year, even being kind of as an alumni of the network, still has played a major role in helping to connect us. We needed to recruit a board member, for example, and Imagine H2O is the one who connected us with Sivan Zamir, who's one of the VP at Xylem, who's now sits on our board and helps to guide the strategy of the company, and connecting with us with former executives from the water industry who now make up our market advisory board. And so it's just been phenomenal from a resource standpoint. And then as we as a company continue to grow and fundraise, even making connections to investors and giving us insights on these are the funds you really should be thinking about who would be a good fit for the technology. So from my perspective, it's really just a program that there's a lot of accelerators. Not all accelerators actually help you accelerate. This is definitely the case here is we came out flying off the back end of this way faster than we entered the program, and so can't speak highly enough about it.
Well, I guess that's the definition of accelerating, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So when you were going through it, I imagine there were like some phases that you would learn about something, you'd say, I didn't even think about that we had to prepare for this in some way. Or any of those, I see you nodding your head, any of those come to mind?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, for us in particular with deploying a membrane, there's a lot that comes up with, how pricing and warranties are a big deal. How long is your membrane going to last and how frequently are you replacing it? And how do you capture value beyond just an initial sale to be able to decrease some of the lumpiness of the revenue that comes from project basis, which is just really hard to manage and sustain as a startup company, having those sorts of things. So that really impacted kind of our strategy as we thought about how we're going to market, how we're working with people. And then all of those conversations came out of some of the trainings that they were hosting on the front end of kind of connecting thought leaders in the water industry and giving those of us in the cohort the benefit of the doubt of hearing from them. So yeah, there's a lot of different things where you're just getting access to a piece of information that allows us to connect the dots that are relevant for us. I think that's where a lot of the value came from.
So back to you, Scott. It must feel very rewarding to hear your alums saying such great things about your program.
Yeah. I've not heard anyone say we were flying, so I like that. That's a new one. But I think it also says a lot about Greg too. It's he's got the technical background, but he really is open to feedback and working with people that we put him in front of. A lot of this has to do with talent and getting the right people to the team. And a lot of times the university spin out, you get to a point where you're saying, okay, should I be CEO of this company? Do I have what it takes? And naturally, there are, a company will bring in a CEO. And I think Greg has done an amazing job balancing his technical background and being open to learning about the business side and surrounding himself by people that really know the space and how you build a business in the sector. So it's been a lot of fun to be involved in.
So the next generation of Membrions, I guess, are maybe in the process of applying to Imagine H2O. Can you tell us about that? I think you just recently opened up a new period for applications and talk about how that application process goes and what someone would expect or should expect.
Yeah, we're just closing the application process to Imagine H2O Asia, and then next opening one process for both our accelerator and next wave, the Urban Water Challenge. We're really looking for commercial viability. So the team, the business model. Ultimately, you're looking for entrepreneurs that can stand the test of time. This can be a 10 to 15 year journey for an entrepreneur. So you've got to really get that foundation right. So that's often what we're looking for. We're also really focused on four thematic and impact priorities: one in climate, another in efficiency, access, and the fourth being public health. So if we can find startups that hit any one of those impact priorities, that's also a goal of ours with the intake process. The judges and evaluators, they are all industry experts, so it's an independent process. Everyone who applies to the accelerator actually gets written feedback on their business idea. So it's a great resource for people who end up applying.
So within the 4 impact priorities that you just listed, does Imagine H2O have any, interest in trying to encourage certain types of technologies to apply, or do you ever get people contact you and say, Scott, we sure do need innovation in this area? It'd be great if you could be on the lookout for companies that want to get started that do X. Anything like that?
Certainly with a number of our corporate partners, that's, we understand what they're looking for. And with these intakes, we see a lot. We see applicants from all over the world. So the insight that we can gain is certainly important. But we're also cautious. We're not going to say, this next year, we're going to just take 6 membrane companies. The universe of good startups in the space is only so big. So we really are open ourselves to each year the cohort is going to be different. That's kind of the magic of it all. But it's also a reality. We can't always just be looking for a very specific technology. And again, oftentimes it's the business model and people. So that's what we're looking for first.
So let's kind of move to the final questions here. I've got to have one for each one of you. And Greg, you get to go first this time. How can our listeners find out more about Membrion?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is, visiting us at our websites, membrion.com. It's an easy place to kind of learn more about the technology, the process we apply, the type of people we work with, and they're always open to connecting there. We attend a lot of the major water events. We'll be at WEFTech in October, and so it's a great place to be able to connect with us as well. So yeah, we'd always love to hear about the crazy wastewaters and see if it's something that we can do to help.
And you're located in Seattle, right?
Yeah, we are. We're based out of Seattle, Washington.
Okay. And, Scott, same question for you. How can our listeners find out more about Imagine H2O?
Yeah, if you're a startup, I'd encourage you to go to imagineh2o.org/apply and register your idea with us and look and find which program is going to be most appropriate for you. Certainly our website has a blog and a lot of insight there. I'd also encourage people to follow us on LinkedIn, because I think that's the best place where you can see in real time updates that we share, but also our alumni share with the broader community.
So you mentioned, you're accepting applications now. Do you have any deadline here in the near future that people would want to know about?
I would dive in now, but the next intake is happening this month. So the earlier the better. But yeah, by September we should be closed up. Yeah.
Well, great, Scott, Greg, thank you for joining us today.
Great, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot too.
Good.
So this has been Talk+Water. My podcast guest today, I should say. I knew I was going to mess up. I always mess up at some point in podcasts, and I just did it. My guests today were Scott Bryan, president of Imagine H2O, and Dr. Greg Newbloom, the founder and CEO of Membrion. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in, and to say, if you enjoyed this episode of Talk+Water, please let us know by giving it a like. My name is Todd Votteler. Let's talk water again soon.